Hello, and welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, the strategies, and the insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Jeff of Brainchild Creative. How's it going, Jeff?
Doing great.
Great. I'm really glad you're here. And to start this off, Jeff, I'd love to just understand a little bit more about your background and a little bit more about Brainchild Creative.
Brainchild Creative is a project-based agency that specializes in brand management, brand narratives. We have actually a specific specialty in the public affairs and the public aspect of corporate and corporate reputation, branding, and how that affects in the public arena. So, for example, we have done a number of efforts for advertisers related to political things that might happen to them, or we have done things where they have a reputational issue on the line,
Mhm.
or we have done projects where our more conventional branding. But public affairs is our sweet spot, and we're actually pushing out very hard on that right now. We started right around 2001 as a result of the dot-com collapse. While we knew at the time that there was a big technological setback, people were disappointed that the hockey stick wasn't, people weren't attracting eyeballs on the hockey stick as fast as they had expected. In fact, we knew the internet was going to become a dominant driver in the media environment, and that's proven to be true. But rather than organize ourselves in a traditional way, the way agencies are with a media department and a creative department and a account services department and a production department, what we said is let's create let's create an agency that builds bespoke teams where it's everything you need on that team to service or meet your client needs or meet a specific problem and nothing you don't.
Wow.
Let me rephrase that a little more neatly. Our
Yeah.
theory at the time was that clients would need a more efficient and a more targeted way to deal with their marketing problems.
Mhm.
So what we developed was a project-based focus and everything you need and nothing you don't approach to the skills that we were bringing to those projects. We only work with senior level creatives. We only work with senior level media people. And that's nothing to say bad about juniors. It's just to say that when you have a tight-knit team, that you really want to have the highest level talent on that team you can get. And people have proven they can solve problems. They've got a resume and a track record that will work that well.
Wow, that's super interesting. And so you built this off of a theory. Have you seen that theory has been proven out for you that people need these specific solutions to very specific problems?
Let's go back to 2001, what was happening. The dot-com collapse, followed by 9/11, followed by what there was actually as a result of that two economic recessions at the time that happened. The first based on the collapse of the web-based economy, and the second that happened as a result of what happened here in New York
Mhm.
and the tragedy that followed that. We knew at the time that there needed to be a different approach to the business.
Yeah.
And it's really working out. And we weren't the only ones, I will say, at the time. There were a couple of others around the country, three or four of them that I knew of, that were trying the same model. But we, I think, to our knowledge, we're among the first, and we certainly are the most durable because we've been around for the last 23 years.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a long time.
In dog years, or actually in advertising years, it's several lifetimes.
Yeah, yeah. You have an interesting model here. How are you finding the people? Is it people that it sounds like you're handpicking people for to work on these projects? Do you pick from a pool that you already have, or are they employees of the company already and they finish up with one project and they go to a different one? How does that work?
We have a very tight-knit centralized team,
Okay.
and each of us have deep, what I would call a deep Rolodex, a deep contact file, as we say now. If anybody remembers what a Rolodex is, good for them. Anyway, we have deep contact files, and you can always ping people and say, who do you know? And finding talent isn't that hard. There's just, particularly with all the disruption that's going on in the marketing, in advertising, there has been, there's no dearth of really extraordinary people out there. But I'll give you an example. One of our larger clients is PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric on the West Coast.
Mm.
And they had a specific need to create, they were worried that they were not being efficient in how they were approaching SEO, search engine marketing, and whatever else. And they said, can you provision that tactic? And we said, we don't have anybody specifically, but we were able to find somebody, recruit that person, and build that out inside of a couple, 3 weeks. And that was 10 years ago.
Wow, that's insane.
It's just the great thing about advertising is, despite all the reasons not to get into the field, there are
Mhm.
still compelling reasons to get into the field, and there are wonderful people who you can work with. And the joy is to work in a team with really high level players and to really go for the fences on every time you take on a project. You don't want to, we're not here just to do the job, we're here to make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. So you describe Brainchild Creative's mission as difference brand advertising based on the principle that clarity is the most valuable currency. And I'm curious, what does clarity mean to you in the context of persuasion, and why is it so critical today?
I think clarity is the key step. If we're not, Einstein said that if you can't explain it, then you can't solve it,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So we all know that clarity is essential in the effective solution to a problem at any level, whether that problem is a creative solution or a media solution or an online, you name it, clarity is critical. Clarity both in terms of our objectives, in terms of our audience, and in terms of the outcomes and the results we want to have.
Mhm.
I think you can say, for one, to put a little top spin on it, clarity is the absence of bullshit. And you know something? The world is too full of bullshit these days. And so you're spending a lot of money on people, and you're spending a lot of money to put your brand out there or to solve a problem or to affect an outcome that's critical to your business. You really don't want to have to deal with bullshit. You want to get straight to the heart of the matter. You want a solution that's going to achieve your objectives, one that's going to move the needle, win attention, and get you on the way so you can move on to the next problem.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's really interesting that you say that, because that makes me think of, you're totally right, but it also it makes me think of how brands also try to cover up that BS. There's this big thing, and you're a branding guy, maybe you've looked into this or you can appreciate this, and I don't know why my mind's even going here, it might not even be that relevant, but there's this big push in branding, especially in CPG, in the past like 5, 6, maybe 10 years now, where people were so against these loud brands and whatnot. And all of a sudden, it started moving into this, okay, let's simplify branding. These things came out like Method body wash, and that was all just covered BS because it was the same thing. They just used simpler branding. And you're really advocating for hey, let's not do any of that and let's just be clear about our message, and then we can persuade through clarity. So it's interesting, it's almost like levels of it. There's all this BS, there's people who try to cover the BS, and then they hopefully eventually we move to a place where there is none.
And part of that BS is that people fool themselves. They think they're doing good work and they really aren't. I'll tell you something. Here's an interesting urban legend that I've never been able to track down, but I love it.
Mhm.
When Mr. Webster was writing his dictionary,
Mhm.
we all know a strategy is, we define it as a plan to achieve an objective or a way to achieve an objective. The urban legend is that when Mr. Webster wrote that dictionary, he added a word, clever. So it's
Mhm.
a clever way to achieve an objective, or a clever map to get to where I want to go.
Mhm.
And you know something? The implication is, of course, if it's not clever, it's not strategic.
Yeah.
So a lot of the BS you see out there, a lot of in a world where everybody says, "Oh, look at what I just did, and isn't it great?" Yeah, we hold ourselves to a higher standard. We say that in order to be, first of all, we need to be strategic.
Mhm.
We need to be clearly strategic. We need to be cleverly strategic. And what we need to do is have a very focused mission in mind in order to achieve the objectives that we are being paid for.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of nonsense out there, and a lot of BS and a lot of fantasy.
Mhm.
If we cut through all that, we really come down to some very basic core principles.
Mhm.
One of which is that advertising works because the reason advertising works today is the same reason it worked when two Neanderthals realized that it was cheaper to sell to two caves at once than one cave at a time. We're an efficiency answer. Door-to-door salesman would be great, except it's not very efficient and costs buttloads of money. So we have this. So let's be clear about what we offer: a faster, more efficient way to create traction for our products and our services and our companies. Second,
Yeah.
let's be honest that we are now living in a world where getting attention is impossible. There's a whole field in economics called attention economics. It was invented by a Nobel laureate out of Berkeley.
Mm,
And if he had a very simple definition of what is attention economics. He said, where there's a wealth of information, there's a poverty of attention. So
mm,
if I'm overwhelmed by so much information out there, how do I actually get to that, the poverty of attention? How do I actually get somebody to pay attention to me
mm.
and to pay attention to my advertising and my messaging? So we have an attention thing. The third thing is to assume that consumers are not what is it? David Ogilvy, I think, was quoted famously, or Bill Bernbach, one of the two. The consumer, this is 1950s, so they would say it this way: the consumer isn't stupid, she's your wife, or as we would say, the consumer isn't stupid, they're your significant other. If you think about it, we have to be honest about the intelligence of our audience, and that we have to appeal to that intelligence and not think that we're somehow in the business of hyperbole and fooling people into buying our products, because we can't.
Yeah.
And the last thing we have to say is that the advertising can be a positive force in the world, it can be a negative force in the world. And something good creative, good strategy, good media all elevates the game. It doesn't bring the world down.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Wow. It's a very crowded market. And I think I've been of the thought that like if there's a crowded market like there is in advertising, it makes it that much easier to stand out when there's more people because they're all doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So simple scales, right?
Yes, yeah, but let me give you a slightly different view. One of the great challenges that we face today is fragmentation.
Mhm.
And for the members of our viewing audience who don't know what that is, if you consider that we went in the 1950s from four or five TV networks, depending on how you count it,
Mhm.
and you could basically communicate to roughly 80% of the American population on those five things, to now thousands and thousands of media channels. That's fragmentation.
Yeah.
The challenge of probably the great challenge of our time in advertising is how do you overcome fragmentation? How do you, there's a thing you can Google called What Happens in an Internet Minute 2025. And I recommend highly, anytime anybody wants to see how high the cliff is, how big the mountain is, take a look at that. And you're going to see how much information is put online at any one time competing for people's attention.
Yeah.
I think we have to understand that fragmentation is incredibly difficult. People are on YouTube, people are on TikTok, people are on Facebook, people are on Reels of Facebook, and so you have this difficulty of saying how is my message going to attract a big enough audience that it can actually result in real valuable benefits for the advertiser.
Yeah.
The challenge becomes the opportunity is how do you, and you're right, mediocrity and been there, done that, seen it before is all that does is leave you at parity with everybody else that you're competing with for attention. It's
Mhm.
creative that stands out, but it's still, and creative, I would argue, is the only way you overcome fragmentation.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Really well said.
I think.
Yeah, this has been so great, so informative, Jeff. Where can people learn more about you and where can people learn more about the agency?
They can read more about Brainchild Creative at brainchildcreative.com. They can find out about me at LinkedIn. I'm JEF, one F in Jeff, because my parents were effing stingy. EFLOEB, and that you can find out more about me, or you can subscribe to my blog, which is thereductionist.biz. THEREDIC. Well, anyway, you can spell reductionist.
Yeah, I'll have
Dot
everything
biz.
in the show notes below.
Dot biz, and which is where I occasionally inflict my opinions on the world that an unsuspecting and probably not really happy world about what I think about things in marketing and advertising.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's a really just based off this episode, it'd be a really great read. Thank you so much for being on, Jeff. This was fantastic.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me.